All right, let's welcome into Straight Fire. This isn't quite an emergency podcast, but we're putting on hold the NFL and NBA just briefly because, oh my gosh, the ESPN bloodletting on Tuesday was massive. And Ryan Glassbeagle is one of the top sports media journalists in the country. So we thought we'd have him on. Ryan from Front Office Sports. I've known Ryan for 15 years. Ryan, how are you, man? It's a tough day in sports media.
Yeah, I mean, I was getting a little bit of deja vu. We had a few days like this at the Big Lead where we were scrambling to, chronicle the names, and here I am, however many years later, doing it again.
Yeah, it's really ugly. And normally I wouldn't talk about the media, but I think there's a bigger story here, and that's just the demise of sports media, specifically TV, over the last 5, 6 years. I mean, we're seeing guys at ESPN who've been there forever, fixtures at the network just being canned. Ryan, what is this
There
about overall? Is this like a big panic day, or is this just a, well, hey, there was an NFL Network ESPN merger. Let's settle down?
It's a lot of different things. So, like the way that these ESPN layoffs typically work is Disney, the parent company, tells them, okay, like you have a number to hit in budgetary cuts, and then how you get there is up to you. So, I mean, Disney as a new leader, Josh Tomorrow took over for Bob Iger. He's making changes around the company and ordering cuts in various divisions. ESPN isn't the only one. I saw reports that there were also cuts at Pixar today.
Oh,
And so like that's part of it. And then like there was a cohort of like behind the scenes NFL Network people who had been there a while who were let go now that like ESPN kind of has a handle on how the network runs, and they figure, okay, well, this guy at ESPN can do this person at NFL Network's job or whatever.
right.
And then as far as like the talents go, it's kind of like a mishmash between people they probably wanted to get rid of, and then some others who just, fit into they make more than like what the company feels like they should pay somebody in that role at this
Mm.
time. And so, I mean, if we could go kind of like through the list if you want to like talk about like what like the factors were, at least as far as like I know, in terms of like what led to them, because like obviously there's a lot of like different circumstances for each person.
For sure. I mean, I saw some people not because this is nothing to joke about. We all lose our jobs, but people were like, "Hey, this is like the Celtics with Brown and Tatum." I mean, Stephen A. and what's his face, the former punter, is soaking up all the money, and they got to stay under the second apron. I'm sure you've seen
It's
some of
not
that.
really
It's
that. It's not that. I mean, like, look, those people make a lot of money because they draw a lot of money. Like the Stephen
yeah,
A's property has made profits for ESPN for a really long time. Like you can kind of draw, at least like maybe not as much recently, but for a while you could draw the line on, ratings and revenue and how much he would drive the needle. I think this latest deal for him, they might have a little bit of like buyer's remorse on. But in terms of like just the long-term trend, he's
mm,
definitely made money for that company. I really just think, there's been leadership shifts in terms of like who is in charge of various content divisions. The people who are newly in charge have their own preferences, and then you look at like
yep.
what people make, and sadly like ESPN isn't like sentimental about this. I mean, it is interesting, like, Mark Jones, longtime announcer, he was out before the NBA playoffs. He says, it's my decision. And it's like, really? I mean, you tried to leave right before the NBA playoffs? I don't know about that, but sure, like, take ownership of that. But then there's like Carl Ravitch, who has been there since 1993, and he's just like included in these cuts. And it seems like we, like a couple of us media reporters, found out about it before he had like received the call. So it's like interesting, like, who gets what exit, but the end result is like kind of the same.
Yeah, I mean, Carl Ravitch has been there forever. I saw a big fantasy name was let go, Stefania Bell. She's excellent. Um, I don't know. Do you think AI is a factor in any of this, Ryan? I haven't seen that, but in all the other jobs, I'm seeing AI
All
as
right,
a
so
major
I mean,
factor.
like again, there's so much. I don't know what Stefania was making, but they're just like not using her as much on their primary properties. As maybe they would have like 15 years ago. I mean, remember when she was like partnered with Matthew Berry, how like novel it was that ESPN was covering fantasy sports. Now there's fantasy sports coverage in every nook and cranny of the internet. I mean, you look at Ravitch, he's somebody where he was an excellent studio host, and in my opinion, when he moved to play by play, he was not as strong for that
Mm,
as he was as an anchor. But we saw this a decade ago when it's like, oh, the anchor is becoming extinct. So then a lot of the anchors tried to move into play by play. We saw Steve Levy, Carl Ravitch, Rich Eisen all try their hands at play by play. Chris Fowler moved off College Game Day to call the top ESPN college football game. And so, like, Ravitch, got in this position where he's calling Sunday Night Baseball, and he was really in with the old ESPN content chief Norby Williamson, but now Williamson is gone. They don't have Sunday Night Baseball anymore. He's still getting paid like he was calling like flagship property, and that
yeah,
adds up to like how you get on one of these lists, even like with 3+ decades of experience. And so
yeah.
there's individual circumstances with all these guys like Cam Newton. um Probably, like, if we could find out what Cam Newton was making to be on First Take once or twice a week, it probably would make us like physically ill. But like, wait a minute, he's making that to go
You
wear
think he
that?
was moving the needle, by the way, on first
No,
take?
no. Like they know they have the quarter hour ratings. They see the same social metrics that we all do. And he has his own podcast, and they don't want to be responsible. Same with Ryan Clark. Like, they're on these other properties, and ESPN doesn't want to be responsible for everything they ever say on them. And so uh like, it just, all these people again are in like different buckets of what like triggered their exit.
Yeah, we don't want to like paint with a broad brush, but I think people are trying to look for patterns. And I mean, Ryan, over the last 10 years, it feels like there's almost been ESPN layoffs every year. Or should maybe I'll say departures. Um, Maybe that's a better word. Not every year is layoffs, but there's kind of some big names departing, whether it's a conscious uncoupling or whatever you want to call it. Ryan, this seems to be happening like every year.
Okay, so you covered this before everybody. I'm old
Yeah.
enough to remember this. You had a thing where it's like, hey, tucked away in this little Bloomberg story, people are scared at ESPN about cord cutting. And I dismissed it at the
Yeah.
time. I was like, who's going to get rid of cable? You need it. It has everything. Well, ESPN at that time was in about 100 million homes. Now they're in fewer than 70 million homes. They like, despite what you see with like the ratings being records for everything, most of ESPN's money comes from their subscription fees from, Comcast, Charter, DirecTV, YouTube TV, etc. You're paying, I don't know, probably $10 a month or more per month per household. So,
Mm.
30 million times 10 times 12, you're starting to look at like real money in terms of lost revenue from the fewer subscribers they have. So, when I started at the big lead, ESPN was just, to use Dan Patrick's word, the mothership. They were adding all these satellites. They brought on, Bill Simmons, Nate Silver, Jason Whitlock, gave them big budgets to start their own satellite websites to just do whatever they wanted. They kind of stopped doing that by the time it got to Whitlock, but with, like, Simmons and Silver built like 60, 70 person staffs.
It's a good point.
um and they were just adding every property. Like, John Skipper went and he's, hey, let's add Wimbledon, like, and just, they were on a buying spree because they were buoyed by all of this subscription revenue. And so that hasn't completely dried up. ESPN is still profitable. They're still the biggest sports media brand out there, but they're not the same level as dominant as they were, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, do you think that this is a wake-up call to some journalists that, hey man, you think you've made it to the top and you're at Fox, ESPN, NFL Network, whatever it is, but you've got to continue to build your brand. You can't just expect these companies to keep you on. And maybe it's a sign that, hey, you need to start, I don't know if you want to call it starting a YouTube page or TikTok or whatever, a side hustle, but it doesn't hurt to have a lot of that ammo in your bag.
Yeah, you absolutely have to have a social presence on as many channels as possible. I mean, not every company is going to like let you have a YouTube channel. I don't know what the answer would be if I went to my bosses and said, "I'm going to start a YouTube show
Well, why
independently."
would you ask? Why,
Yeah.
why, no, well, not a show, but you could content could live there.
Yeah, but I mean, you're on like an IP deal that it just could become a pain if like you ever part ways. I don't know.
Mm.
They're like they're they're like I've heard stories about people who build up like a YouTube page while they're a staff writer at an outlet, and then when their deal is up, the outlet is like that YouTube page belongs to us because you were a full-time worker for us. You were getting
Mm.
health insurance, you were getting retirement benefits. You can't just create this thing on the side when you're a full-time employee. There's lots of companies that take that angle. So we're getting a little bit astray, but yes, to your point, you want to develop as much of an individual brand and individual distribution across social networks because you never know when one of these social networks is just going to change the algorithm and rug you. And so it's a constant hamster wheel, but I would still argue, though, remember even when we were at the big lead, you remember this. The only person who had ever really succeeded leaving ESPN to do something on his own was Dan Patrick. You remember what people would tell Colin Cowherd and Skip Bayless when they left ESPN for FS1. They said, "You're
And
going to get
Levitard, yeah.
lost." Like, Levitard just was saying, "You're going to get lost. You're making a huge mistake." What are you doing? And now then Levitard ended up leaving and he got, a $50 million deal out of DraftKings for 3 years because ESPN gave him his podcast feed. But that's the good news for a lot of these people. If you're nimble, there is life after ESPN, whereas for the longest time, the only two people who really had big careers after ESPN were Patrick and Rich Eisen.
Yeah. I did see like a New York radio host, again, not to get too granular, but it was Chris Carlin and Bart Scott. I know this because
Yeah.
I'm a former Jets fan. How do you axe one and not the other? What on earth could that be about? Now, maybe that goes back to your salary thing, right?
Well,
Where
it's
these former
salary.
athletes,
Yeah, I mean it's salary. It's like it I don't know that Bart Scott could do like a solo radio show. He's probably earning more because he has these ancillary like ESPN appearances
mm,
on Get Up and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean that was like another one that I broke today, and it's a little weird, but 'cause I happened to break it while Carlin was on the air. But you can't really
jeez.
wait for like, I mean, at least Bart wasn't on the air, but you can't really wait for like to break this type of
No,
like
no.
news when you have it. It's just I know people who aren't in this are probably like listening to this and just thinking I'm terrible, and I can like understand that, but I don't know, it's a
No,
weird.
no, no. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody would think that. Why would they think that you're
Well,
terrible?
to,
Like,
to like break news about someone's partner being out while this guy is on the
well,
air.
listen, so listen, Ryan, some of that falls upon ESPN. You've known about this for a while. This didn't just sneak up on you. And maybe you could argue they didn't do a great job of communicating, right?
Yes, I think you could probably argue that. Like, I mean, it was like tricky this morning. We're talking on a Tuesday where somebody's like career fate and they might not know it yet. And how do you handle that?
Well, yeah, but hold on. Listen, if you know, then ESPN clearly had told their agent, or so, they had to have an idea, right?
Uh,
Why would they leak it to the media before telling their own people?
I mean, it's not like ESPN is like sending it to me on a telegram. Like that, you have ways of figuring like these things out. You know this because you reported
Yeah,
on this stuff
yeah.
for
No,
years.
you're right.
But
That's rough.
the yeah, I mean, it was a tricky spot this morning for sure. But like at the end of the day, I like. my paycheck comes from like me getting scoops. Like those are the things that like move the needle. You have to have proprietary information as a reporter.
Yeah,
And
that's why you have
uh,
you on, dude. You're good. So wait, hold on. I want to back up to one thing. So you had mentioned, and I had to look this up. So it looks like about 2010, 2011, according to Sportico, there were 100 million cable subscribers.
yeah,
That was
I
like
think
the
it
height
peaked
of
in
the
then,
big
yeah.
league.
And it stayed right around there until like 2014, 2015, and then it's just been a steady erosion ever since.
The number I'm seeing now, according to Sportico, 2025 or 2026, 61 million subscribers. Ryan, they've almost lost half of cable subscribers in like, let's just say 15 years.
I think it's a little more than that because like I don't know if it's like fully counting like YouTube TV or
Okay.
like Fubo or like their own like ESPN over the top network, but yeah, I would say it's probably in the 60 to 70 million range now.
Okay.
So yes, they've lost at least probably conservatively they've lost 30% of their subscribers. Liberally, they've lost 40%.
And that's only going to continue to accelerate. This is I don't think it's going to slow down unless we think, because of longevity among boomers that all these old people are going to keep cable. Well, I don't mind telling you this. My mom cut cable.
Wow.
And she's like, I mean, I want to watch you, but this is expensive. It's the thing I don't need. I'm
Tell her
watching like
about
four
Fox
channels.
One.
Well, yeah, we got her on. I mean, we're taking care of it so she can watch. She got to watch her son. But it's just a weird time. Like, do your parents have cable TV?
They have direct TV streams, so they have like the direct TV equivalent of YouTube TV.
Yeah, and now it's like, hey, do you have Apple TV? Do you have Netflix? You start adding those up, and it's significant. I
I don't
just,
even want to like
yeah,
yeah, between because I'm a boomer and I still pay for cable. Plus I have Netflix, Paramount Plus, Peacock, Apple.
I have all of
The
them.
only one I don't have is Hulu. And you know what?
I
We
don't have
actually
Hulu.
have
Yeah.
we have two Netflix accounts in my house because I got tired of asking my wife what's our password and like her
No
getting all
way.
upset about like having to look for it that I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna pay $8 a month, have my own Netflix, and we're not going to have this discussion anymore. But
Jeez,
I bet you
that's
I'm not the
crazy,
only
bro.
house that's like that either.
Yeah. I will say if you look at some of the names that are being cut, sure, they're big and they're on TV, but where are we headed 4 or 5 years from now, Ryan? Because we know the World Cup just happened on Fox, all on cable. Obviously, you could watch it on Fox Sports app and Peacock, but let's be real. The World Cup was a massive hit. The hydration breaks are a new revenue stream. Ryan, is it gonna be on cable in 2030 or are they gonna just put it all on streaming? What's your
You
guess?
know, the head of the FCC, Brandon Carr, spoke with Clay Travis, like another of my former bosses, yesterday, and said like, I don't know if this should be on Netflix. It's what's been in the public is that the three bidders right now seem to be Netflix, ESPN, and Fox. Now, a key part of Fox is I know like it doesn't seem like very many people do this, but it can technically be free TV if you like get those rabbit ears and hook them up to your TV. I don't think I know very many people who do that, but like there is a way to for $20 you get Fox, NBC, CBS, and ABC and like the CW. But yeah,
But you
I don't
wouldn't get
know.
FS1 in that.
No, you don't get FS1, but you get all the US games in which are on Big Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for so like for if you're just like a big soccer fan though, you can just get Fox 1 for $20 a month for 2 months and then
Yeah.
drop. That's like a thing about the cable decline though, is like to cancel cable, like a lot of those deals were like multi-year contracts. You would say, hey, you'd get on the phone with Comcast and say, hey, my bill is too high. And they're like, okay, well, we'll knock it down if you do a 2-year contract. With Fox One
Yeah.
or ESPN Unlimited, you just go month to month. Like if you only care about football, you only need ESPN from September through like January, and then the rest of the year you can cut it.
Mhm.
And there's all this segmentation was not available a decade ago. The
Yeah.
only thing that existed was Netflix.
I'm wondering, we saw the NFL. and the NBA kind of divide up their rights and split them among, which is smart. Do you see the World Cup potentially doing that in
I don't
2030?
see why they couldn't. I mean, they're going to do what makes them the most money. If they think that they're going to get more money slicing and dicing it and selling it to two of Fox, ESPN, and Netflix, or maybe we siphon a game off for CBS or whatever. Like, I don't see why it needs to be with one
Yeah.
partner.
Well, the
I
only
think it
problem
has
is,
multiple partners in other countries.
so the league, NFL being divided up doesn't really matter. Everybody watches the entire league. Obviously, you like the Packers or Bears or Jets.
Yeah.
You're gonna watch that, but you're watching the whole league for fantasy and gambling. World Cup is different. You watch for sure every USA game. So I
Yeah.
don't know how you would divide that among Fox, ESPN, Netflix.
That's why. I mean, how do you divide up the Chiefs games between these people? There's more appealing and less appealing NFL games, and they figure all that out.
Yeah.
It really is going to depend on how FIFA can get the most money. If like one buyer, if Netflix comes in and is like, I think Fox paid something like $500 million this year, but it's worth 1 to 1.5.
Yeah.
This is off the top of my head, so don't like quote me on this. But they like, let's say Netflix comes in and say we're going to pay 2.5 billion. We want the whole enchilada. FIFA will say yes. But if Fox, ESPN, and Netflix all were like, hey, we only want to pay 700, 800 million. Well, maybe it ends up with the three of them figuring out how to divvy up the pie. I
Yeah.
don't know. I do think it's I don't see why they couldn't split up the World Cup though. If they for sure would if that's going to lead them to a bigger pot of revenue than just selling to one network. I don't think
Yeah.
it's like I don't think they're like, "Oh, we just have to be one person, like that's the only thing we're going to do." I feel like they'll be open-minded about it if it means that we can shower them with more human money.
All right. Ryan Glassbeagle, front office sports. Ryan, great job breaking a lot of these. I know it's a dark day in sports media. Once again, we keep saying that every year, but you're crushing it, man. Congrats.
All right, thanks, Jason. Anytime.